first question to you, Ian. I'm curious. I think it's a good idea for you to sort of right-size it, I guess, if you want to use that word, and bring the production rate down a little bit in the CapEx. Did this decision come out of, essentially it was driven by conversations with mine finance groups and guys like that? I mean, is that really what drove this? Was feedback from potential financiers saying, look, we like it, Ian, but we're really looking for a longer mine life for this to make sense for us, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, for conventional banking methods, they want to see a little bit more of a tail beyond the 5-year mine life, which we acknowledge and understand. It was also that coincident with the fact that the realities of the junior financing market for juniors almost dictated that we go out and have another look at the engineering and the process by which this PEA was developed. We know our contractors did very good work, but we also know that there's new approaches and new ways to go about the engineering, the equipment, and other modeling that went into the original PEA that can be modified. And while there's not a lot of money necessarily for exploration and add-on drilling, we feel that this is the most wise way to go ahead for our shareholders in order to prove the viability of this deposit over what we think will have a smaller CapEx, a more manageable CapEx, and certainly a longer mine life.
Okay, thanks, Ian. The next question that came in from the audience is one I'm gonna throw at Tom Ulrich of Aston Bay. The first part of the question is probably unanswerable anyway. It's when can you start again? You probably have some idea based on the what you're hearing in Virginia, but I realize I haven't really listed the restrictions yet. But the second part of the question was whether you've got the funding and the intent is to get right back to it on the drilling side as soon as the COVID-19 restrictions do in fact get lifted.
Yeah, Eric, certainly we don't have a very good feel for when we will open up again down there. If there is a stay-at-home order in place, there is a new governor in Virginia. I believe the last I heard they intended to keep it going until June, which in the end may not be that far off from many other jurisdictions. Of course, they could rescind it, and a lot of areas are coming back at it now. As you say, really nothing I can answer right now. But in terms of the ability to get back and do some more work, this does throw a bit of a wrench in the plans. But having said that, we always intended to raise a bit more money. We actually do have our finances technically still open. We haven't been able to do anything with it as when we got our first tranche in, we actually got our soil samples back, and we've been under a bit of a blackout. We couldn't really finish out the second tranche until we've got that through. We're free and clear now, so I think we're going to raise a small bit of money over the next few weeks here. But certainly the idea is to get these results back, get drilling again, and then do the next raise at a significantly lower cost of capital to us.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. The next question, I got a couple of questions for Minera, although, I mean, a lot of this stuff was stuff that Doug did actually deal with in his presentation. But one of the viewers did ask about the recent drill results, and it's not so much today's results, I don't think. I think he was actually talking about some of the ones you put out late last year, where you can certainly argue that some of your drilling intercepted what looks like a porphyry center. This viewer was wondering whether that changes the game plans in any way, shape, or form at Santana. I mean, are you going to try to deal with the porphyry? Are you going to ignore the porphyry? Have you got any thoughts on it at all? This is for Doug.
Yeah, it's not a priority. It's perhaps more of a geological curiosity. There is an underlying intrusive there. We didn't quite go into it with the whole 134 nicho. We believe all these pipes are fed off a larger plumbing system below. The Divisadero target zone, I think the questioner was asking about, is a little lower topographically, I should say. So we tagged it. But no, I mean, our focus is on the gold and getting gold onto pads and producing gold. Yeah.
I had another question from another viewer that was asking about, they were asking about today's results, but specifically they wanted to know if you had any insight in terms of, overburden, by which I think they mean, overlying stratigraphy too, not just dirt. How does that compare to, what you've got your arms around, I guess, within the pit shell, to the extent there is one? Is this stuff you can deal with relatively easily, or is it, would it be hard to push back, or how's that stand?
Yeah, we're lucky in that really we model a 2-to-1 strip ratio. In reality, virtually all that waste is internal waste. These breccia pipes form nice topographic highs, so we'll be taking the tops off small hills, really. So yeah, I actually think that the drilling we did today, not only did it at least be in line, if not better than our modeled grade for what we're considering there at Nicho. The strip ratio is probably better than what we have modeled as well. We like to be conservative with our project inputs. Okay,
thanks, Doug. The next question is from one of our viewers. This one is for Tim Moody at Pan Global. This viewer took note of the tin grades that you show in a number of the holes, which is a little bit unusual, I think, for these systems. But you and I have talked in the past, and you've told me that it is something that, for whatever reason, shows up in the Iberian pyrite belt. Can you do you have any insights? I mean, essentially, this person's asking, are there comparables in the belt? Can he or should he be reading anything into the fact that you have tin grades at La Romana?
Yeah, thanks. No, it's a good question. Well, from what we've seen, these are the highest tin grades we've seen of any of the VMS style mineralisation on the Spanish side of the pyrite belt. However, Neves Corvo is not only a significant copper deposit, it's also a significant tin deposit. It was producing quite a lot of tin, particularly in the early days, running percents of mainly cassiterite. So it's not unusual in VMS deposits. I think Kidd Creek also has some tin, and there's maybe one or two others in the pyrite belt, but it's not that common. And we're certainly seeing meaningful grades. When you're getting 0.5% of tin, tin's 3 times the price of copper. It really has quite an impact. So there was a study done quite a few years ago by the BRGM looking at alternative exploration methods in the pyrite belt. One of the observations they made was that high tin seemed to be more associated with large deposits. And where it did occur with smaller ones, they tended to be satellites to a large deposit. So I think what we take is a positive from it, that if you're seeing tin, better to have it than not, because and if you do have it, then it's more positive for a larger system than a smaller one. So it's good news from what we see, but it really could make quite a difference in terms of the economics. They were, I think, Neves Corvo was treated using gravity processing. So, but yeah, really, really important.
Okay. I'll take it as good news. I kind of like that. I like it. It means it might be a lot bigger concept. That's always a good thing. I had one question as well for. I've got a question for Kevin, and I'm just wondering whether you've got plans this summer for the 2 southern properties, if you will. I mean, obviously the main focus is going to be the Golden Triangle stuff. That's where the targets are. That's what's drill ready. But I think your southern properties have a little more season, which might come in handy down the road. Are you planning to do anything there this summer in order to kind of maybe bring one of those forward to be a a potential sort of winter drill target, if you will?
Short answer, not a lot planned this year for those properties, Eric. Spanish Mountain, we know what we'd like to do there. It's a sediment-hosted gold system, but low grade. Holy Cross has got a very large alteration system, very big, and it's intriguing, but we have to sort of put our thinking cap on that one, because it's not quite as straightforward as we thought in the early going it might be. It's got a broad area with a lot of silicification. There's a big mag anomaly there. There's certainly a large gold and copper anomaly, but it's patchy. And we think there's an underlying intrusive system, but we've also discovered a lot of the IP response there is from pyrite, and it's not got the goods in it. So we need to kind of work out an approach that would allow us to put our finger on the higher grade parts of the system. And that's not obvious yet, but we have some ideas.
Okay. Thank you for that, Kevin. I had one thing I also just wanted to ask Ian about from GMV. As you're aware, I've been down on the property, and one of the things that was always interesting is what's known as Hernandez Hill, which of course was named after Manny Hernandez, who discovered Mexican Hat. And I believe it was Manny that showed me around on it when I was down there. It's basically this big silicified hill. I mean, it's just so, it just looks so obviously like the top of an epithermal system. I know it's something you poked a couple of holes in a couple of years back without a lot of joy, and I don't consider it sort of the main event, if you will. But is there any thought to maybe running a couple of holes into that sometime this year? Because that's the one area of the property that I think, if any area's got the potential to pop some high grade results out, it's probably that area. I mean, Mexican Hat itself it's a bulk tonnage system. It just doesn't generally generate high grades. Is there any thought to just as a side thing, taking a shot at that?
Yeah, you're right, Eric. We did drill that a couple of years ago without joy, as you put it. We think that we drilled from the wrong angle ultimately after some of the pre-drilling work that we anticipated and did. So we ran an IP survey. We're expecting the results back very shortly. Things have been backed up as a result of COVID, and we haven't received the reports yet, but we're anticipating it shortly. We certainly do have all the markers at surface that get us excited about what could be a high-grade epithermal target below. Unlike the Mexican Hat, where it's got a very unique mineralization at surface, the Hernandez Hill certainly gives us a lot of quartz at surface and other things that we get excited about. So as soon as we get the reports in and the analysis, we'll make a determination as to whether or not we want to drill it again, but it certainly does have all the markers.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ian. I got one other question come in for Tim. Actually, someone asking about metallurgy. Several people have asked about bank accounts for everybody, but I think most of you have answered that question directly or indirectly. That was kind of asked of you as well in terms of what, can you get going with drilling again, Tim, with what's on hand? But the other part of the question was about metallurgy. The pyrite belt generally, is that an area where there might be some metallurgical issues? Is there anything unusual looking right now? I don't think you've done any met work yet, but based on what you know about the rest of the pyrite belt, is it an area that you can deal with the metallurgy generally?
Yeah, you can, and I guess it depends on the style of mineralization. Some of the really massive sulfide often needs a fine grind. However, when you've got some of the mineralization that we're seeing, which is fairly coarse-looking chalcopyrite dominant stockwork and semi-massive mineralization, although we've got no tests at this stage, that it could be much easier to process, could produce a better concentrate. We've just actually selected a half a dozen samples to get some petrography and some other work done, scanning and so on, electron microscopy, to have a look at the mineralogy and give us some early sighting on what the metallurgical characteristics might be. Obviously, that's not a metallurgical test, but the indications are that with coarse mineralisation, really chalcopyrite dominant, not full of lots of pyrite. We could be looking at some pretty nice looking mineralisation from a metallurgical perspective.
I think I'll call it here at the end of the Q&A. I just want to thank all of you gentlemen for showing up today. Some of you are here later than others. Tim's 8 time zones away. And thanks for coming, giving us an up-to-date presentation, letting us know what's happening with your companies. And obviously, thank you to the audience. Thanks a lot. I know there were quite a few of you out there watching these presentations, and thanks for passing on the questions.